It's a soulful party started, a different type of party. So cheers to everybody for choosing to spend your Sunday morning connecting into ourselves, really, and into the untethered soul. I really love these chapters. So we have entered into part 4, which is about going beyond. And in in the letter, we usually start with this. Let me see if I can pull it up. Really talks about the house, the metaphor of building our own house out of protection for protecting and staying comfortable with what's known. And so let me go pull up this. And I'll just read this, and this will be our jumping off point for the discussion. So it says, I'm going beyond. Your house is made of your thoughts and emotion. The walls are made of your psyche. And again, another way to think about psyche is ego, right? Like that part of us that is so human. That's what the house is. You have pulled together in your mind a specific set of thoughts and emotions, and then you've woven them together in a conceptual world in which you live. This mental structure completely blocks you from whatever natural light is on the outside of its walls. You have walls of thoughts thick enough and closed enough to where nothing but darkness is inside that structure. You're so entranced into paying attention to your thoughts and emotions that you never go beyond the borders they create. So I thought that that was a good excerpt to talk about the idea of going beyond, because when he's talking about going beyond, like pulling up that physical idea of a house that we have constructed, that we have closed ourselves into, that we have spent so much of our time creating safety and protection within the confines of our mental structures, that we don't venture out beyond, or we don't even know, we've lost sight that there is this whole world of light and exploration on the outside. So limitations and boundaries only exist at the places where you stop going beyond. In chapter 13, he talks about like if you shine a light, it goes on like a laser light, it'll go on into infinity unless it gets hit by something. So in that sense, if you never stop, you go beyond boundaries, beyond limitations, beyond the sense of a restricted self. So then the prompt, the question that I'm going to open it up with is think about instead of write about what it might like to be free of all this sense of me and to go beyond yourself. So let's start there. What might it be like? I'm gonna stop the share to be free of this limiting sense of yourself that you have and to go beyond. What are some either words, thoughts, ideas that would describe that for you?
I
Yeah.
think freedom is the biggest, one of the biggest freedoms is not caring what other people think of you. And
Oh,
I think that's hard for a lot of us. But if we can trust that, we can be ourselves, and then whatever people think of you doesn't matter because they either like you or they don't. And they get to you give them I think it's freedom for them too, because you give them the freedom to choose. And I work with a lot of women right now, and they really care about that. And as I get older, I'm caring less. I still care because I have a business. I have a feeling when I don't have a business, I may not care at all, but I have to have a certain presence in the community
yeah.
that I work in. So I have to care a little bit about what people think of this crazy bra lady. So um, I'm looking forward to the complete freedom of that.
So the freedom of not caring what other people think, like letting it's kind of that idea of letting your freak flag fly, right? Like whatever can't even say freak flag. Go ahead, try it 3 times fast, everybody.
Free flag sloth.
More coffee,
That was
more
one
coffee,
time. Freak
more
flag,
coffee.
not enough coffee. Yeah, it's we all have like yeah, that is your authentic flag. Like you can call it your freak flag, your authentic flag, but when you fly it and just be like, this is who I am, and I'm no longer concerned about and any like the judgments or the thoughts, and that's that whole let them theory, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, like I can come on here with you all and put this ridiculous headband and my mop of a hair up and be like, let's go. Good morning. Here we are. Okay, what are other feelings? What else does it feel like when we go beyond the limits of our mind? I hear you whispering.
It, I'm thinking it feels calm.
Mm.
Not when I'm not thinking or worrying or the negative parts of the way I sometimes tend to go down the rabbit hole. The
Mm.
calmness is really nice.
Oh
And
my, yeah.
yeah,
Calm,
what was
free.
the prompt again?
I don't even know. No, I'm just, what will it feel like? It's tapping into what it might feel
Grounded,
like
yeah.
to be free of all sense of me, right? The construct that we create, that sense of me is the construct that we create around ourselves, like with what the house
Oh,
metaphor that he talked about. Like in chapter 12, it was putting you in a meadow, right? This beautiful meadow full of light, and you build your dream house, you build your dream light, and before life and before you know it, that dream like is actually trapping you inside. And so to break free of that, to go beyond that, what does it feel like? And I think for me, like this idea is really hitting home because as I've shared, like I read this for the first time in 2020 where I was just probably starting to see light on the other side of that self-constructed house. And the house for me was, it was of course the beautiful house, the physical house that was built, the family structure, I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a teacher, I am all of these external things. And I felt very safe in that. And then when, the poetry of the timing of my life is just becoming so, it's like good job, universe. It's coming up on the anniversary of signing my I'm being told that my husband had filed for divorce and that I needed to go sign the papers. That happened in March of 2020, and how that just cracked me wide open, like wide open. And that's more like chapter 13. He talks about like that, but the walls. There's an excerpt that I want to read in chapter 13, but not yet. I just wanted to like also maybe shift this to asking like where do you feel that you are? Do you feel like you are within the confines still? Are you like a foot in your safety, your safe nest and a foot out? Are you 2 feet out? Are you still totally in? Are you like what the fuck are you talking about? Let's just deconstruct what this means, this mental house. Like, are you following his metaphor? He also talked about it as a zoo, seeing why are you seeing like a tiger in a zoo, right? Tigers are not are meant to be wild and free. It happens to be the name of the retreat, wild, wise, and free. So I've been contemplating a lot this being wild, being free. What does it feel like? How do we allow ourselves to go beyond? I'm going to take a sip and stop talking.
I think when I think about that, it feels like bravery, and I think it also feels like
Mm,
confidence, and I think it also feels like fun and free because if I can separate myself, then I'm not really thinking about myself anymore. I
right.
think I have it would be like the confidence of like to me, it's like God consciousness. So I just feel like it would be like zooming out from my small little problems that I have and just feeling completely confident and trusting. And then I think it also allows me to really be present and connect with whoever I'm with and be thinking more about them instead of just about me and my little problem, my little house. that
Yeah.
I am hiding in. And one thing that I've been trying to do is like give myself new experiences. So I'm going to this like Kundalini cacao ceremony today, and I've never done anything like it. And I think there's going to be some dancing, and I'm very self-conscious about like dancing around strangers is a very self-conscious thing for me. But I told myself like, Beth, you need to have new experiences so you can like, I think that's a way of breaking walls down is having new experiences, even if it's, I'm excited and uncomfortable at the same
Okay.
time.
First of all, what time, where, when this is happening in Boise
It
tonight?
is at like Torque, Boise. I've never been there. It's downtown. It's at noon. It's
Oh,
like it's an hour and a half. So I'll let you know how it goes.
that's a really beautiful point. And like the bravery of that, of doing something that is like intriguing, like kind of like I'm curious and also uncomfortable and a little bit scared and don't know what to expect and doing it anyways. That is how you crack down like because the thing that gives me courage in moments like that is like nobody knows me here. Nobody knows me. Even though like Boise is kind of a small town, like nobody knows me. I might not ever see them again. Like it doesn't matter. As far as they know, they'll be looking at me and being like, "Oh, look at that wild and free, beautiful soul to just, dance and move and express themselves." So just giving yourself permission to be the I'm just gonna keep saying that free version of yourself, that wild and free version of yourself that like there no, because nobody's gonna be judging
I
you.
know. I know.
They're
It's
all
so
gonna be looking at themselves and being like, how do I, like managing your own pain to be seen, like to have that light on you.
well, and I think it's going to be an opportunity to lay a new neural pathway because I have a very like vivid memory of being in fourth grade at a drinking fountain. And I took a dance class. My mom like really wanted me to do it. And I was just not good at it. Like I just was not. It was like it just is what it is. And I remember being in line and hearing one of the girls say like she's in my dance class and I heard another girl ask is she good and she said no and I was like and
Oh,
like I
okay. Okay,
yeah,
so that's a deep wound. That goes back to, I mean, like, and
fourth
it's
grade,
so
yeah.
fourth grade drinking fountain. That girl has no idea she ever said that thought about you.
Right. Yeah.
But that moment was like, those are those thorns that we protect, the apparatus that he talks about, the house. Like, that's like, you have a dance wound.
Yeah. But I also think like how great to like be consciously thinking about that. And it might sound silly, but it also sounds really freeing to be like,
Yeah,
it just doesn't matter. So
right.
that fourth
Oh,
grade wound go, I guess today will be my goal.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Who else? Like, what else does it feel like to go beyond yourself or to step outside of your house? And once again, where do you feel like you are on your journey right now? Are you inside? Do you feel like you're still trapped? Have you like cracked a window? Have you stepped outside? Using this house metaphor.
I feel like sometimes I step out and sometimes I step back in. It just depends. Like today I was in church and I felt like I'm in the light. You know what I mean? I just felt so awesome. And I wish I could feel like that every second of the day or bring just, God's with you all the time, bring that feeling everywhere I go. And I'm like, why do I feel so good in church? And then I go out and someone's hit my thorns. So
Hmm.
I feel like I'm in and out. I can't say I'm all the way out and I can't say I'm all the way in. I'm both. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and it could change like again throughout the day. I'll just be at the kitchen sink and I'm putting water in my vase and the reflection of the light. And I'm like, I see you, God. And then all of a sudden the phone will ring and someone will give me bad news. And I'm like, ah, and I go back into the house. So it's like in and out is how I feel. I'm
Yeah.
not, I wish I could be all the way out. I'm in the light, but I go back in. I mean, I'm human. So,
Right. That's
yeah.
a good, yeah, in and out.
I really liked his analogy. It might have been in the next chapter where he uses the dog on the shock collar analogy, because I was like, that's sometimes how I feel. Like I recognize something inside that I want to push a boundary and get out, but it's that internal work as I'm doing it, and then I'm like, oh shit, this kind of hurts. Like I don't know that I really want to do this, and then I'm like, jump or get pushed, right?
Ooh.
Like that's usually what happens when I'm doing internal work. It's like jump into it, go through that shock collar, or get shoved, and it's going to hurt a little bit more.
A lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really where I feel like um, I kind of play with like, okay, boundary, I see you, and
Mhm.
I have choice now. Do I want to do the work and push through it, or do I want to sit here and get zapped?
Right. Because we live in a world where I believe that the majority of the people choose the comfort zone. And I say that as somebody who, gosh, I'm going to go to this taking down the walls. It's like, brings up Conjures, Pink Floyd, tear down the walls. But on page 120, there were I mean, my whole page is just like, oh my gosh, because it felt like, and then I was writing so true, and I was writing, this is me. I was, and I'm having this moment of just like so much gratitude for, I did not choose the life that I'm living right now. Initially, like 5 years ago, just like you said, Bridget, I was pushed. It was like, you're gonna go into this. And I don't know, I honestly, part of me doesn't know where the courage to like just keep exposing and breaking down the walls came from. And I think in so many ways I was forced, but he said, in order to truly go beyond your model, this is again, chapter 13, last paragraph, you must first understand why you built it. The easiest way to understand that is to study what happens when the model doesn't work. Have you ever built your whole world on a model of life predicted upon another person's behavior? And this is the part that got me, or the permanence of a relationship. Like just right there, the permanence of a relationship. I know when I took my wedding vows that I was like, upon like, this is it. This is my life journey. I thought I knew, right? If so, have you ever had that foundation pulled out from under you? Somebody leaves you. That happened that year. Somebody dies. That happened the following year. Something goes wrong. Something shakes your model to the core. When this happens, your entire view of who you believe you are, including your relationship to everyone and everything around you, begins to fall apart. You panic and do everything you can to hold it together, right? This is the denial stage of grief. I definitely did that. You beg, fight, and struggle to keep your world from collapsing. And then once you've had an experience like that, and most people have, you realize that the model you've built is tenuous at best. The entire thing can fall apart. The whole model and all that it's built upon, including your entire view of yourself and everything else, can start to crumble. So what you experience when this happens is one of the most important learning experiences of your life. You come face to face with what you built, with what you made built. You come face to face with what made you build the model. What made you build the model? The level of discomfort and disorientation you experience is frightening, and you struggle to get back some semblance of normal perception. But what you're really doing is trying to pull the mental model back around you so that you can settle down with your familiar setting. That's why, like, this year of this snake and all the changes that are like, I mean, jazz hands, if you've noticed some changes lately, right? Like things are changing. Things are being removed. Like we have seen it from Beth's workshop on the new moon. We're coming up on another new moon in a couple of days. And as we're like following the rhythm of the cycle and seeing the planets and their journeys and what they're doing, they are predicting what is happening. We are going to feel this. It is going to push us against the limitations. And we might want to just boundary back up. And how do we keep ourselves from doing that? And I think that's why it's important to see, like, what will it feel like to go beyond the limitations? What does it feel like to be free? What does it feel like to have that courage? What does it feel like, um, to have that calm? That's what Phoenix said, the calm on the other side of these boundaries, and reminding yourselves of what that feels like to give you the courage when you bump up against, like you were saying, Chandra, right? Church, you're like, I feel amazing. Life is great. And in the parking lot, maybe even before you get to your car, you're like, oh, a thorn is bumped. And how do we continue on this journey of opening and going beyond and observing ourselves, when we're in the face of this, and it is already happening. So I wanted to also ask, like, how are you doing with being in the seat of the observer? We haven't talked about that quite as much lately, but that's the premise, is to be able to step outside of your own thought pattern and witness what's happening, be the witness to your emotional responses. So how are people doing with that? And then has anybody bumped up against something that they could use a little support, in getting some encouragement to keep going beyond?
I have a question that I'd be interested what the group thinks. So I've been thinking about that idea a lot, like I am not my thoughts, I am not my thoughts. But then I think, well, if I'm not, like, what are those? Where are they coming from? If I am not them, they're coming from somewhere, and who are they? Where is that source, I guess? And also the duality of, yeah, I'm not my thoughts, but I actually can manipulate them. I can consciously think them. So, anybody knows the answer to that? I'm very curious.
That's a great question.
Well, isn't your thoughts your consciousness? That's your consciousness. That's being here. Those, your subconscious is probably the things that are holding us down, because those are the background noises that when you're sleeping comes and creeps up. But here we are in consciousness. So, I mean, I can't imagine just being nothing. We have to have some type just to show that we're alive. So to me, what I would say to you is my consciousness, but I'm not the expert here.
Yeah, where are those thoughts coming from? Because you're right, they're always there. I mean, we can work to silence them to a certain degree, but they're there. But once we're aware of them, it's like being in a lucid dream, right? When you can manipulate and you can play with it. So that's what's interesting about it, is they're both there, and um they are you have control over them.
Mhm.
Only if you're aware
Well,
that.
and I was reading another thing that he had written. I can't remember what it's called, but he talked about, like, as he's going through this whole process, eventually he feels, where mostly we kind of think we're kind of here when we're thinking it's this part,
Mhm.
and he feels this pull where it's more from behind, and like thoughts are kind of coming back here, and he's really, really like feeling behind his head almost, and looking into and observing all of the thinking. Like he's almost observing his own little psyche and can really feel the separation. That's part of what I understood, but I don't know. It's just very interesting.
What else? Who else has a thought on what our thoughts are and where they come from?
The way that I understand it is about the consciousness and all the voices that just keep coming. It doesn't matter if there is a higher self, it's almost like your soul talking that can see it. So I thought he wanted us to get behind that so we can see it clearly. And I see that as a different voice that's like, oh, look at what she's, Lisa, what you're doing. You have all these thoughts and things going through your head, and it can be like a deeper self. And so maybe part of it's the head, and maybe the second part of it is the heart, which are two different dialogues, maybe. So I just let the rattling come and go and just say, wow, that was interesting what you just, all the chatter. And then the calm and the breathing. And the meditation can say, oh, that's based on this fear, or I'm trying to make myself safe right now, so I'm going to do that, so I feel like there's all the voices, but and not like those kind of voices, but the voices, the chattering, and then there's a calmer part of you, a different neural pathway that give you some clarity on what those chatters were. And so being behind it, I remember him saying that too. I don't totally get that concept either, but I think getting behind it helps you see it. And then you're not reacting to that. You're more reacting to the higher self. It's hard for me to explain, but that's how I understood it.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Mare. I could hear Mare back there. The question is like, where do these thoughts come from? One of the things that when I was first starting to really be aware that I was like, oh shit, yeah, like there's there's incessant chatter happening all the time. And then also like when I was a practicing Christian and would go to church, I was like waiting for the booming voice of God to speak to me. And that was also another way of like trying to understand like what is it I hear? And then when I would start to hear things and I was becoming aware of things, and this is before ever having read this, then I would question like, well, how do I know if this is the voice of God versus the voice of evil? And what I learned then, what my mentors and teachers told me at that point was just it depends on what you're hearing. If it is a pure source of love and encouragement and hope and fills you up, like for me, I feel it in my heart space. If that's what you feel, that is the divine source. And then all the critical, judgmental thoughts, that is either ego, it's the devil. Like, is the devil our ego? Like, I have not figured this out, but just discerning what voices to listen to, what I remember, and what I truly believe is that if the voice, if it feels loving and supportive, like that is a divine source coming through you and wanting to talk to you. And whether like, and that's what I don't get, Beth. Like, I have no idea. Does that live within all of us as we are created? We are sparks of the divine. We are all essentially one and we're connected through our breath and, like our DNA and all this stuff that has us all really kind of the same consciousness. Like, it's wild. It is wild. We are so complex as human beings. There's two
I
ducks.
was kind of thinking of all of us like as instruments, you know? So like me, Beth, and you, Andrea, and everyone on here, it's like we're an instrument and it's very temporary because our bodies are temporary and our personality. And like if you imagine air, when it blows through different instruments, it makes different sounds. So I kind of been thinking about like we all are essentially consciousness, creativity, source, whatever, but it moves through us each differently. So we're each a different expression of that. And then ultimately we just go back to that when our time here is over. So that's one thing that I like to think about is that we're all just different instruments. And then we have our different gifts so that consciousness can be seen and expressed in all these different ways. And that's why I think it's so important for people to like use their gifts and to recognize them. And anyway, that's a thought.
That is a beautiful thought. Do you guys Bridget just unmuted. I'll hold my thought for a second. Go ahead, Bridget.
Well, I was just going to say, just for me, that sometimes those thoughts that come up are my patterns, the walls that I built in my house also.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, a lot of it is discerning, is this a thought based on a previous hurt, or is this my divineness or my um, intuition, or like that's a lot of my journey has been recently is this me, or is this past me who's
Mm-hmm.
wanting to heal this piece of me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, right now my question is, why do we need to know? What is the call to knowing the difference?
I think the call to knowing the difference is a lot of people are really trying to connect to their intuition at this time of consciousness and awakening, right? And if we're here, it's because we have like this soul calling to be a light leader in whatever way that resonates for us. And for me, my story is that I covered up my like I think I covered up what I truly wanted to say in my expression, and in by doing that for so many years and protecting this house around myself, that I disconnected from my intuition, from knowing, like from being able to, like, do I trust what I'm hearing? If I hear this, like, how do I know what that is? So for me, it has to do with building your intuitive skills, I think, is why.
Yes, that makes sense. I can speak to that. May I speak
Please
to that?
do. Yes, I knew you could. Let's go.
And I have a feeling I may have heard Beth speak to this as well, but I would say, and this is, some of you know, this is what I would say I've learned from both my, yeah, thank you, Mayor. What I've learned both from my time with Alora and her Halei, as well as my teacher
Explain
Puma in Peru.
explain who Alora and Hale are, just real quickly.
Sure. I like to start with the question for that one. Who has heard of Abraham channeled by Esther Hicks? Great. And then Blythe, not so much. But Alora is a friend of ours who lives here in the Boise area who also channels like Abraham and they talk about Abraham on occasion too, because many people have heard of Abraham. Abraham is a channeled entity that Esther Hicks channels, and she's super well known. You could look up their website. They do informationals, they do webinars, they do workshops, all these things, and she has a ton of YouTube videos that are posted in short chunks, which I think is useful. Anyway, so I have my own local Alora who channels Halei, and Halei's purpose, as per what they say, is they are here to help humans connect to our souls and souls to connect to our humans, and it's been fantastic. I've been working with her regularly for like 4 years, more than 4 years actually now. So what I want to say that between Halei and Puma, what I like has worked for me, translating it through my experience, is that you were speaking earlier about one voice comes from a different feel. You can feel it comes from a different place. And for me, what I've learned for me personally is my intuition is the thought that the thought that is there before I think. You can almost tell it comes in just that little bit sooner, and it's before I had time to think the thought. And the way I figured that out is practice, right? So even at work, I practice with the elevators. Like I work on the fourth floor, and when I press the button, I already face the direction I think the elevators, of the three, which one it will be. And I'm noticing I'm about 85 to 90% accurate. And so that's just a fun way to keep myself primed. But what I would invite you to consider is how in your daily life can you practice that intuition, hearing your intuition, and then noticing once you're kind of like, oh, well, that thought came like right from here. I almost felt it, versus that thought came from right here. And for me personally, my intuition comes from kind of right behind me. It's almost like it's every now and then I'm like looking behind me. I'm like, oh, okay, that was an intuitive thought. And so once I can identify that, then I can practice on knowing and starting to trust it, because knowing it is half of it. Heeding that is the other half, or if the ratio doesn't matter, but you get me.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's beautiful. So you're saying, like, the intuitive hit, like it's a thought that comes before you're able to even think the thought, and being playful with experimenting with your own intuition and where you're being guided. That reminded me of I love Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, Big Magic, you know, The City of Girls, all those things. But I heard her speak at the Morrison Center last May. And whenever she arrives in a new city, she steps out of her hotel and she plays the game called Most Interesting Path. And it is 1,000% what you're talking about. It's like in the simplest way, trusting that your intuition will guide your day and just continually, like with every turn, like if I were to walk out of the parking lot here, you look forward, you look left, you look right, and you decide what looks the most interesting, what's the most interesting path, and you go that way until you're at the next crossroad. And then she just allows the events to unfold as they are. And that's how she explores a new city. Like anywhere she goes on a book tour, she just leaves the hotel and plays most interesting path. And I think that that's a really cool way. And the elevator is another really cool way to just take a moment to be like, well, let's see what the inner voice inside of me wants to bring out in
Yeah.
today.
And I think I feel it feels silly to say the example of the elevator, but the point of that too that I want to make is
Hmm.
that you need to fit it into the day you're already having, right? If you think it's something extra that you need to do, when are we going to make time? Because many of us are very busy. And then if it's something extra that I'm needing to add, like I,
Right, right.
like, is it really going to happen? So like as you're driving along, right? As you're commuting, as you're having your walk with your pet, or the observations, or yeah, it absolutely, you need to find the ways that it'll fit in the day you're already having.
And that's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can I just add, I always feel, see, and I think a lot of you guys are like this too. I know Andrea's, right? Like I'm thinking about, like, I'm literally in gratitude to Pachamama, like, oh my God, it's so pretty. And today I went for a walk and all the little, it's like the water drops hanging from the ends of the trees is like jewels, and it's so pretty. And shortly after that, I saw like a heart shape. There it goes.
Oh, you
I
did. You beat me
I
to
did. I
it.
saw a heart. That was with you. That's right. I saw a heart shape something, just in the like a spot in the sidewalk or whatever, and I'm like, that's good enough for me. That
Mhm.
works, right? And we've all had those moments, and finding those more and more, then it brings more joy. And then you're like, oh, is that my intuition? Oh, I was just thinking that, and here's a demonstration. Yeah. And then then you start tracking it. If you're a tracker, or if you do have time, that for me it felt like something extra to add. But then you can track it and see, like, oh well, I had this. I was literally thinking this, and then I saw, or I had this experience, like, and then that's your confirmation. When you learn how to read the signs of your confirmation, then it starts getting fun. Like, ooh, all right, like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, I love that. The word confirmation is one that you have taught me when you came back from Peru with Puma. Like just anytime you notice something, whether gosh, and I feel like we've had some confirmations, Mayor. Like help me think of examples. I mean, I know we've had a lot, but I'm not in my normal writing practice where that's what I like to do in the morning sometimes is write down what came through those confirmations. And sometimes, oh, like yesterday, we went to the headwaters at Shasta and we got in the car and I was pulling up the map to get us back to Ashland. And yesterday being 222. Oh, good. Yeah, some animals. Yesterday was 222 and we got in the car at 222 and my screensaver was of a redwood and I had just like hugged a redwood, at the headwaters and I just took a screenshot and I was like confirmation of
Yeah.
what I don't even know what it's a confirmation of besides it's just like that's so cool
It's a
that
confirmation of the love that's there.
yeah, and 222 for me was a big day in my story back in 2022 on 222. I wrote a blog post and it's called 222 and it was all about taking the power back in my finances. And so I think there's more also for that number for me personally. Also, I was born on the second. Like the number two has always been like I've loved that number. It's been my favorite number you know and so it's just like whatever it means to you but just it is a playful and it just gave me a little like that's cool like here we are like 222 at 222 and this redwood and we're in the redwoods and it's and there were two of us, yeah, and there were two of us coming back to Ashland. So it's neat. And then animals. So Mare wrote some of the animals. Yeah, like Lisa and Mom, you're on the Teo group of sisters. There's somebody in the group that traveled to Teotihuacan with us last equinox, fall equinox. Her mother passed away, and she had been seeing wolves, coyotes.
Cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it was shared in our group, and the amount, like within the group of the Teo sisters, how many people just had, like, then all of a sudden coyotes everywhere, like in a card pool, coming across, like it came across our path as we were driving towards Burns. Like we were just starting on our journey and seeing that coyote cross the path, and like, or a song with a coyote, like all this stuff that, we're not, like, it's just it came into the awareness, and like there's like this love, and everybody's sharing their stories back to this woman. It was a kind of a another confirming thing that like we are connected in ways, and when we're looking for the signs, um they want to reveal it wants to reveal itself to remind, like, we're not alone here, and we have so much more power. uh and playfulness. Like, really, I love that part about, like, it's fun. It is fun when you're like, yeah, I chose the right elevator again. You'll skip on in there.
You're gonna start doing that now too, aren't you?
I am, because yes, yes. I too. Um, Confirmation for me are numbers that show me my angels are with me, and it makes life very magical daily.
Awesome.
And Lisa just dropped off. I'm not sure if that was.
She's like, I'm leaving.
I'm gonna drop this at 9:44. So
Mic
there's,
drop. That's it.
yeah,
That's all I
there's
got.
another, right.
Confirmation.
We'll see if she hops back on. Our numbers that, yeah, my angels.
And I feel like inspired to add this. I'm not sure why, but like for me, I've had like I've been spiraling downwards the last really since Thursday evening, Friday, and what's today? So yesterday, Friday, I was having my really low day, and I finally messaged literally in WhatsApp my Puma from Peru, and just told him thank you for all you do, and just like whatever, just a gratitude message to him. And the next morning, as I was scrolling, there was a really cool video that I just had to watch twice of a mountain lion purring, looking directly at whoever was taking the video, literally looking at the camera. And I was like, that is so cool. And I just love cats, so I didn't make the connection until 2 or 3 hours later. I'm like, oh my God, that was my confirmation from Puma, like that everything's fine. And yeah, to some people, it's like that might sound like stupid or willy-nilly or woo-woo, but I don't care, because to me, that was how he does it. That was my confirmation from Puma, that I had a mountain lion looking practically right at the screen.
Oh.
It was just so powerful.
And what you just said there, like, you can look at it as woo woo or this or whatever, and that's like that going beyond, going beyond. Like, I don't care what you all think. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't, it truly does not matter what anybody else
Exactly.
thinks.
Because that's our symbol. That's literally his name, right? Like for me,
Yeah,
that's
Puma.
confirmation, because I, within 24 hours, had just asked him, just checked in, and he probably, like, he's really, well, he's a shaman, so he, so he can do things like that. And I was just like, oh my God, like
You
that's
got
so
it.
cool to
Thanks.
get like just
Welcome
a,
back.
yeah. Oh yeah, also that.
Yeah, no, well, welcome back to Lisa. She just popped back on. We thought, Lisa, you had a drop the mic moment. You're like angels and confirmation numbers, and then you left it.
No, I left. My internet just crashed right now, so it just came back on. I don't know why, and I was able to reconnect. So who knows what that was all about?
Okay.
No, I was on the phone with her when a coyote came in her backyard, and so we looked it up, and it's been just showing up every time. So it's kind of cool, and I love the magical. What I was going to write, it's kind of when you look at life that way, it can be pretty magical. So
Super magical. Super magical.
yeah, so
It feels good, and and again, this is where we can separate ourselves out from anybody else. You can call it woo woo, but I always go back to Einstein, who I think is anything but woo woo. I mean, very logical, very, like, helped us understand so much about, like, this earth that we live on. But he's the one who says that you can look at life as though everything is a miracle or that nothing is a miracle. We get to choose. And when everything is a miracle, you see the coyotes, you see the cows, and the mare, that's a sign for her, that confirmation. The cougar that was looking you in the eyes, or the puma that gave you confirmation. The number 222 that like hit me in this place. I'm like, oh my gosh, look how far I've come since 222 of 2022. Like, and then the stories and the thoughts that come up, then you get to choose also. Like, when a memory gets activated by something, what is that memory wanting to tell you? What is, yeah, what's coming through for you? And is it the time? Okay, Beth just dropped the mic and she just had to. Oh, she's getting ready for the Kundalini event. So
Oh, that's right.
we'll collectively remember for a check-in, please, with Beth next Sunday on how that went. I'm so excited. That is so great that she's doing that.
Does everyone know what Kundalini is? I'm exposed to it for the first time in my life, so I'm kind of like looked it up.
Share with us what you
So
have learned. Yes.
not me. I looked it up and it's pretty clear now, but I don't know how to speak to it. I literally just found out what the word meant. So
It's
does anyone else know? It just sounds like a bigger awakening than the
Yeah.
uni.
Energy that basically, if you think about, I mean, this is my understanding, that starts in our root chakra at the base of our torso. And it's the energy rising, like serpentine, like a snake that rising up your side, up through your chakra. So in a way, it is very much just an awakening and a moving of the energy through your chakras.
So when you go to a ceremony, you want that to happen? Like she's going, so that happens. Is that how that works?
I think it is about connecting, yeah, outside of your mind, like to get outside of the mind and into the body and to feel like, because I mean, I don't know exactly what she's going to, but if I heard like a Kundalini dance, I would know that most people are going to be either comfortable or practicing being comfortable in their bodies and the movement to the music. Other people thoughts like.
I've done Kundalini yoga at a yoga retreat, and the lady, I mean, it was so freaking amazing. She was doing music, she was doing visuals, and we were dancing around. And I love to dance, and I was just like getting into it.
Yeah.
But it is trying to, like you said, move the energy from your root chakra to your crown chakra to,
Beyond.
but yeah, to beyond. But it is intense because you're doing all this breath work, and
Breath.
it could get you into almost like a other state, like
Definitely. Yeah.
you can hallucinate really. And so you kind of have to be a little careful about it. Like I've done it on my own and I like freaked out. So it's kind of like almost like doing it with a group is really, really good. But yeah, it's just moving the energy, and it moves at different stages. But if you're doing it in a group, that common feeling like we're all one, and then you're moving the energy that way, it could be a real spiritual experience. It's amazing.
And this is where, many people would look in, like if somebody could observe what's happening in the space of a bunch of people doing Kundalini dancing could be like, look at all those freaks, like, but again, this is going beyond that. Like, I don't care because it feels good to allow the energy to rise. Bridget, our Reiki specialist.
Well, and that's what Lisa, the way that I look at, so Kundalini energy to me is very somatic. It's using like breath and movement, whereas Reiki energy is very calming.
Mm, mm, mm.
Thank you. My spiritual awakening was very calm and out of body through being Reiki certified. So I did float around for 3 or 4 days, and how I understood awakening in the first place. But then there's other levels of it, it sounds like.
And just all other experiences, right? Like just the experience of a Kundalini energy is going to feel different, I think, because it is very somatic versus that Reiki experience. It tends to be very meditative, very calming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's like a really beautiful expression of being beyond. Like if you are allowing yourself, like, and I felt, I'm here with two of my sisters, my soul sisters, Mare, and with Dr. Woo Woo. And last night, as we were together, doing what we do, doing ceremony to the Galentine altar and stuff, like we were talking about what we're bringing to the like what are we laying down, what are we calling in, the 222 portal yesterday. Mars goes direct. We're having a week 1 week where all planets are direct this week, people. So everything is moving forward and until Saturday when Venus takes her retrograde. But as we were doing this, there's music in the background, and then all of a sudden I was like, pause, crank up the music, and I just danced. And my two sisters like just held space for me to just be wild and free. And again, I keep going back to these words, wild and free, because that's what I'm cultivating. That's what I want to create that space for women. I think this retreat is going to be a women's exclusive retreat, so that we can really heal all the wounds that we carry. And for me, like when that song came on, it was Xavier Rudd, and it was Mom, it's called Spirit Bird. And way back when it conjured a memory. And so this is part of like that reason I brought up memories. It brought up a memory again of the very early days. I called it the Sisterhood of the Moon, and we had these moon circles on over Zoom, and it was pretty much me, my mom, and Kim Harrison for for and then there would be like random people here or there, but it was a full moon, and I chose Spirit Bird, and so we would come and we would connect, and then we would turn off the cameras, listen to a song, and then come back and reflect on this song. And so the song Spirit Bird by Xavier Rudd was one of the whole album was one of my healing albums of 2020. And so when it came on, like all of a sudden, like it hit me, and I had to start, like I felt like I had to start moving, and I'm just dancing, and like Susan's like, "You're such a goddamn hippie." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Like just so like because I felt like and yes, I feel safe with these women, but I wonder like I felt so able to express myself through movement. And then I was like, oh, this has been such a part of me that I have broken through this boundary where I do dance all the time. I do move my body all the time. And I maybe am not, haven't taken it to the level that Beth is about to go into a group Kundalini dance experience. I've done some, but not yeah, anyhow. It felt so good to allow my freak flag to fly, and then to also see where I have been, that it pulled up that moon circle from, I don't know, 2022 probably, to where I am now, where it's like now I'm taking this energy force, this healing, and music being a part of that, and bringing it to uh the group. It was really wonderful to allow it myself to be me, and to know
I
that that's part of my
yeah.
soul calling.
I loved videoing you and Teo, dancing down
Dance.
by that tree. That tree made you dance.
Hmm.
I think you tied something. You had to take a
Oh
nice,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm like, I know she will love me videoing her after that. I don't know what the tree's name was,
I
but
know exactly what tree you're talking after
I
that
know.
that
And
cave.
you have that. And so I think it's beautiful. And I'm glad I was able to know intuitively, like I know she needs to, um, I know it would be a great gift to give her a video of this.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just loved doing that and experiencing it through you, So
Oh,
that's what dance can do for people.
it can. And it's not for everybody. Like not, like I don't know if my mom will ever choose to just like dance and move her body in that way. And that's also totally okay. It's just something that I have found feels really good for me, and I have stopped keeping myself safe around that. And most of it actually, most of the dancing does happen by myself in my kitchen while I'm cooking dinner, and I have grown that, and I have learned to trust that. And it's just like, I don't care anymore. I don't care what other people think. If they think I'm a freak, let them think I'm a freak. And if they can just hold space for me, like you did there at that tree and the girls here last night, and then it was like, okay, game on. We can we can come back to our ceremony and our discussion, but I just needed to dance and to move to that song and have that memory of going beyond. What are other ways that people have gone beyond or would like to? Euler.
Trying to think of them. Am I still muted?
You're still muted. Do you want to try to speak? Okay, I'm going to unmute Maren. I'm going to mute myself and hopefully this doesn't sound okay.
Turn up your volume.
Okay. Wait, no, you're still muted. I can't, I can ask you to unmute, but I can't mute you. And then I'm going to mute myself. So maybe it won't. No, you're still muted. Do you want to just come over here? She's like, here she comes, Miss Mare.
I don't know. What's the question? I had it over there.
Oh, how are you expressing? Whoa, you're unmuted now. If you want to go back there. Okay. Okay, just keep going, she says. I'm going to mute myself, but the question was, how are you going beyond?
Well, let me leave.
Okay, just come. Oh, she's saying, okay, never mind. Never mind. Her voice also, she's been experiencing laryngitis. Anybody else feel like they have found ways where they go beyond or where they bump up and want to go beyond? Because that's exactly what he talks about at the very end is like relaxing through the edges. When you hit, when you hit a limitation where you're like, oh, I was doing really great. And then something pulled me back.
I've been doing that for a while, and I don't know where I learned it, but it's been I'm getting way more comfortable with that, and but I still put myself in situations that are uncomfortable, and I still don't look perfect all the time in all my social media and all that stuff. But
It's a good one.
it's basically you when you recognize that you have fear and you're like, what are you going to do about it? And is it real or unreal? I'm not going to die. Most every time I didn't die. And so if you understand when that mine's in my gut, then you can say, I'm going to go through, I'm going to actually let it ride through and see what I learn from it. So, I think if we get that philosophy, I'm just going to face my fear every day and see what happens. I don't think any of us are going to die. I think we're all going to learn from it. I think we can, I just want to encourage everyone that when whatever part of your body says, oh, I'm not doing that, you can assess that and maybe face it. I've faced a lot of things recently with my stepfather and with my mom's estate and with my brothers passing away. I've had a lot of fear around, are they haunting me? Are they, it's like I have to deal with an estate, and so that's not true. I can go, I can just take each one and deal with it. So, I'm facing it by going. I have a court date on March 5th. I have things that are going on and I'm just going into it knowing I'm not going to die. So that to me is going beyond, because otherwise I'm going to be hating my stepdad and I'm going to be wondering about my brothers, and then I'm going to be, feeling sorry for myself because I was the oldest of five and now I'm the oldest of three and that really hurts. It's like, so what? I mean, just okay, what are you gonna do with that? Cry? I mean, I don't know. I'm just facing it and then I will cry if I need to. So it's like there's a lot of things around, and I'm just like, I'm kind of, once you do it the first time, which I think it was, God, a lot of years ago, I did it for the first time facing my fear with my divorce. It gets easier to go beyond and like, oh, it's gonna actually, you are, I think I'm a different person from 1999 when I took two babies in a car and drove out of state and got a divorce. I think I'm a different person. And so, there's a first step in that.
Yes, yes. And it is like an everyday practice. And also like looking back at the journey that you've taken and where you have done it before, it gets easier and easier every time. He talks about loving the edges because they point the way to your freedom. So we're all going to bump up against edges. We do throughout the day, like Chandra said at the beginning, like where you feel when you're at church and then the first edge that you bump. And so it's just noticing and continuing to show up for yourself and to practice. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here. And then ends the chapter 13 with saying, then one day when you least expect it, you fall through into the infinite. And that is what it means to go beyond, when you can just truly, and there are people that point the way that are, you're like, wow, they have arrived. They know who they are and what matters and what doesn't. And no, no, no. Just because I can dance like a freak.
And hug a tree like a
And hug a tree like I am a good tree hugger. Yeah, yeah, but everyday practices from the elevator to getting in and out of the car, like taking those breaths from just noticing like, oh, I want to protect myself here. What would happen if I don't? Being very vulnerable with social media. Yeah. I mean, there's so many times where I'm like, do I post this? Do I post this? Like, then there's this voice that goes, who fucking cares? Post it. Whatever, whatever. So that is a good realm to actively practice that. Like I really love, again, I'm gonna point to Bridget and your what do you call them? Tales from recess, lessons from recess, and
Life lessons from recess.
yeah, it's just, I mean, and that's what I see. I see you being authentic and just being like, I'm gonna share this story, and like you either like it or you don't. Like you listen or you don't, but it's so cute. I love it.
And what's so funny, it's really about me. Like I don't like, yes, I do like, oh, I want people to like it. Yeah, so but it's really about me. It's really just me allowing myself to be seen.
that's how I'm doing my podcast.
No, it's adorable. I love it. And I love Beth today. Can you imagine all of us being injured in fourth grade? I remember fourth grade really well for some reason.
Yeah.
And still like thinking I'm not a good dancer. That happened to my son. He won an award for dancing, and someone told me he wasn't a good dancer. I'm like, you won an award. You're a cool dancer. You're a total nerd, dorky guy. And I loved the way you dance. But I like, it's like those are those thorns, and they can go so far back. And why do I even remember fourth grade so well? But I remember fourth grade really well. So those are good examples of our thorns that we can, today she's going to go dance. I'm like, yay, that's very vulnerable.
That
Who's
is
going to
so,
take a picture and where's that going to show up on social media is where my head goes, yeah, that's vulnerable. I'm proud of her.
yeah. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to get that report back in. Well, beautiful women, it is 10:06 here in Ashland, and we have a hotel to check out of in the next 55 minutes. So if anybody want to share some closing thoughts, final thoughts? Phoenix, you unmuted and then you shook your head. You're like,
I don't know. I was planning for the goodbye.
oh, you're getting ready. Bye. This by the clubs has got to move now.
I know. I'm like, I bet you already noticed too that I sat in 3 different places in an hour. When I finally landed here, I laughed because I'm like, well, I had to go get my coffee. I started over there. Like, yeah, it's not like intentional. It's just like, well,
It's
that's how that
just who
rolled.
you
It's
are, and
hilarious.
that's what I love about you is that you,
So funny.
yes, you're an energy mover. Great. Well, ladies, we just continue to keep on noticing, falling back behind our thoughts as we are able, giving ourselves grace as if, when we falter, and just keep on pushing and loving those edges that are we can break through. We can break through if we desire. So Peace and Love Matter from the Peace and Love Matter Motel. That's what Palm stands for. Literally, here is called the Peace and Love Matter
So cool.
Motel in Ashland. Sending you peace and love, and we will meet again.
The chapters for next week.
Chapters for next week are 14 and 15.
Okay, cool.
14 and 15. All right, beautiful souls. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.